Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. We just at about 7:08 a.m. And we want to say thank you to each and every one of you for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show. Rhea, this morning in the lineup, just a quick shout out. We've got Grace Stanley, Rhea Orr, my very own Rhea Orr. I won't go to the next surname
Good
here.
morning.
Michael Moses, Sharon Mills. Thank you so much there at Sharon Mills. And just a reminder, outfit this morning, courtesy Checkpoint, and that's Checkpoint located at Upper Main Street in Scarborough. It's graduation season, folks. Yes, get your bow ties, shirts, blazers, you name it. They've got the combination there for you to ensure that you stand out from boys right up to men. All right, Michael Moses in the mix this morning. Shiva and New Bear also sending out birthday greetings to William Nana. Auntie Dora is on with us this morning.
Good morning,
as
Auntie
well
Dora.
in the mix, Pearl, Murray Beard, Lisa James. Thank you to each and every one of you for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show. At this point, we're heading on into our first interview segment, and we should have on the line with us Leroy Baptiste, President of the Public Services Association. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Julien Rhea. Good morning to your viewers.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the Tobago Updates morning show. As we get the conversation started this morning, we seem to be in that mode and in that season where unions are accepting offers. Tell us the current position of the Public Service Association.
Right. The Public Service Association, as you are aware, the matter would have been referred to the Minister of Finance, who sent it on to the special tribunal in the industrial court. And the matter is before the special tribunal at the industrial court at this point in time. So the negotiations in respect to public officers are before the special tribunal for determination.
PSA is indicating that this 4% is unacceptable. What about the 4% is unacceptable?
Well, everything. Just about everything is unacceptable about it. Hear me. The simplicity of the job of the union is to try to protect the value of a person's income. Rhea. When you accept a salary, your salary represents a particular purchasing power. So you have agreed to work for $5,000 a month. You would have internalized that the capacity to head into a grocery, a store, and to acquire certain goods and services to take care of yourself and your family. Over time, inflation impacts that ability. Your salary loses value. The purpose of the union, therefore, is to try to protect the value of your salary and indeed to try to improve your standard of living. And therefore, a situation where, for the period under review right now, where we are talking about the government having referred 2014 to 2019, 6 years under review, the headline inflation at that period was about 22%. In respect to food inflation, you were well over 50%. Right now, it's more than over 72% in terms of the increase in prices of food. Yes, and therefore, what that means, if you look at it in the context of headline inflation, what that actually means is that if you could have purchased with your salary a certain basket of goods, you now, to purchase the same basket of goods, you will need an additional 22% to get the same basket of goods. Whenever the union accepts a 4% on behalf of the workers, and I'm using the word accept, the notion of accept, it means effectively your standard of living is cut by at least 18%. And I'm talking about that, Rhea and Julian, that is talking about that past period, 2014 to 2019. Things have got worse over the period of time. So that 4% represent an effective cut in purchasing power of the worker. The worker therefore cannot command the same basket of goods that he could have commanded in respect of 2013. So at 2013, he could have commanded a certain basket of goods. Right now, he has to leave things back And I'm sure that you're quite familiar with that, Rhea and Julian, because the fact is you have an effective cut in your purchasing power due to inflation. So what's the job of the union? To try to see if we can try to have you maintain a standard of living. That's the minimum. And indeed, that's the minimum requirement of the union. Whereas indeed, we're supposed to try to help you improve your standard of living via the negotiation process. Yes? So that is to note, and let me be clear, we did not have no real negotiations this round. You had a situation where a CPO simply came and simply a take it or leave it approach. It was first 2%, as you recall, over 8 years, and then a 4% over 6 years, a take it or leave it approach, 2 meetings, and then they refer the matter to the special tribunal. And to be clear to your viewers what is taking place, the special tribunal is purporting that it has powers to impose a 10-year settlement if it's left before them. So that what you're faced with is where persons are trying to, rather than allow the imposition of a 10-year settlement, you may find yourself where your members say to you, boy, let's settle on the 4%, and because we now would still at least retain our ability to engage in collective bargaining from 2020 to 2024, rather than have that imposed by the special tribunal. So that's what you face. But to be clear, a 4% represents an effective cut to the workers' wages. That's what it represents. You are now in a worse off position than you were in 2013, having settled in 2023.
What would you say for those who indicate, well, this is the national situation before us, and then more than that, a number of your colleagues, associations and so have begun accepting, which therefore probably makes the challenge even more for the PSA to continue to pursue this course of action. Would you say that you may ultimately, eventually, perhaps be forced into opposition? I noted your words when the very last union to accept, the very last association to accept the 4%, indicating that persons are almost at a state of, it's not that I am willingly accepting, but I am accepting under what may be considered to be forced circumstances, given this threat of the 10-year period versus accepting 4% for the 6-year negotiation period.
And that very well might be so. Julian, that very well might be so. You may find yourself in a situation where, well, all unions have structures. You have your general council, for example, and you have the wider structures that you will engage in discussion with. And I can understand, because we are talking about workers are still, in most instances, they are 2013 salary in 2023. And in some other instances, we have workers that are on 2010 salary in 2023. So such workers are in a state of desperation. And you have the government taking this particular stance. Persons looking around and seeing persons, quote unquote, settling for the 4%. Yes, they may be inclined to come and say to me, Mr. President, go ahead and sign. I want to be clear. At no point in time, the 4% will be acceptable. You could find yourself in a situation, as you would have rightly framed it, where it's forced upon you. But I want to be clear. It doesn't make it less unjust. It wouldn't make it less unacceptable. It could be forced upon workers, and that's all it's going to be. Something forced upon workers. And if I am so directed, and I will more than go and engage in having to sign off on it. But it's not that it has become acceptable. Workers would have effectively lost value of their income. The question of it being a national situation, I completely reject. This is a situation of how you prioritize and who you prioritize and what is it. Why 4%? Julian? Why not 5? Why not 3? 2 meetings. There was no attempt to sincerely and genuinely engage in negotiations. There was no attempt. It didn't take place on behalf of the workers. It's how you prioritize and you view workers. And I completely reject the notion of it is some kind of situation where you reach out based on the cut and trust of negotiation. It simply did not take place. The fact of the matter is the workers we represent in the main, particularly public officers, they are prohibited by law to engage in collective action that could force upon being treated with regard and respect. That is to say, the law prohibits such workers from taking industrial action. But with that, therefore, it should have put a greater than normal burden on the state to treat with them fairly. Because you have their hands are tied. They can't take the action as you will put on CNN and on BBC and see workers, nurses, doctors, air traffic controllers, anyone taking industrial action striking. But that is not so under our jurisdiction. And therefore, what you have taken place here is pure advantage. Because we're in a situation where you could only meet with the workers. We met on 2 occasions. We met with the CPO, and then you could refer matter as a trade dispute. That's not fair. It's just simply not fair.
I like the fact that you're going into the process, but we're going to pause there just for a break. Viewers, at this point, we want to remind you we're going to be returning as we continue discussions with Leroy Baptiste on the Public Service Association. I want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Put a smile on your face.
Welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, we are in the conversation currently with Leroy Baptiste, President of the Public Service Association, PSC. And as we continue the conversation, just before we went off to the break, you were delving into a key area there in terms of the process. And I want you just give us that quick comparison. You've said that there was barely any kind of negotiation, an initial offering of 2 coming back with 4, and then now you know it, you're at the tribunal stage to make a determination or whether in favor of what is being presented by the government or something that is more favorable in the minds of workers. Tell us, what did you anticipate as perhaps the ideal process? Summarize the ideal process for us in terms of real negotiations as you may describe it.
Well, real negotiations you would have it if the CPO is engaged in serious negotiation. And the parties would engage in presenting positions, one for the other, one towards the other. And with the cut and thrust of negotiation, you end up engaging in compromise, give and take, so that one could, in respect of the full gamut of the negotiations, there are various elements where one could say we start at one place, but then whereas we could be on the opposite sides, towards the center. So the fundamentals of negotiations is engaging in compromise. It can't be a situation of take it or leave it. And if at all you were to be a student of international politics or anything of the sort, you hear people spending hours after hours, days after days, probably night after night, in trying to work out something that you could consider a compromise between the parties. That was not the case here. This was a simple case of someone put the 2% on the table and take it or leave it. The workers would have completely rejected it, and then put 4%, and after putting that 4% on the table, they just refer the matter to the special tribunal. And so there was no attempt to spend time and engage in any effort to reach any kind of compromise position, a give and take situation where you can actually say that a negotiation took place. It's simply like anything else. You have to spend time behind it if you are to determine that you're involved in a serious exercise. And surely there was no attempt by the state to engage in any fair negotiations. Yes?
Yeah.
They sent it on to the special tribunal, and I want to be clear. The special tribunal has its limitations. I have real systemic concerns about how those things are the composition of the special tribunal and how these things happen in the context of fairness. Yes, but I don't want to get into that today in terms of that. But the reality is that there was no attempt to behave in a manner that is respectful of workers in this country by simply a take it or leave it approach. You would have heard it yourself. The government was making pronouncement on the negotiation. They're coming around the table, whether it's on their budget speech and on national, when they're having their interaction with their constituents. That is where they were talking about take it or leave it. That could never be fair. And it's really a case of simply not caring about, because workers' hands are tied. That's the reality. The workers
Mr. Lambert,
engage in collective action.
Mr. Lambert, sorry, Mr. Baptiste. Workers are, there's even that sense of live to fight another day, take little and live long. Is it that they're also tired of the years of negotiations? Take whatever you're getting for now. And I think that 10-year settlement is deterring a lot of them. But what are your thoughts on just I'm saying here, just simply accepting the 4% for now? And I understand your fight. I understand the reason and the rationale for fighting on behalf of these workers, these public servants, but maybe some of them are just tired and are willing to accept whatever they get. We're willing to accept willing to undervalue themselves for living to fight another day.
So Rhea, the sad truth is that there's no living to fight another day, because from a systemic point of view, the structures in place, the workers will never be able to fight. They are not permitted under law to engage in collective action. There's no fight another day. If you have a government that is prepared to weaponize the advantage that the law gives them by the prohibition of industrial action from these categories of workers, guess what? It means that they could always take advantage of them. That's what this means. And let me put it to you this way, and I would have started by saying that there are structures in here. We have general counsel, and we may be in a situation where we are guided to go and sign off this agreement. Well, the government's position to sign it off but I don't want at any point in time that someone will use the word acceptable as the basis for signing. You sign under duress. Someone put a gun by your head and ask you to relieve you of your wallet, and you give them your wallet. At no point in time that must be deemed to be a situation that you view as acceptable. You did it because you were under duress, and so that's fine, and we may, just like the others, walk that path. But I don't want at any point in time for that to be deemed to be something that we accept. Let me be clear. A public officer working for about $5,000 a month, and we do have public officers, clerks, working for just over $5,000 a month. And after 6 years, the amount of the increase would be something to the tune of $200 you're putting on a person's pay. Just over $33, $34 a year. And you have to now weigh that in the context of the cost of living and the impact of inflation. There are no amount of negotiation that will come thereafter that will be able to even out the playing field. These persons will have in fact suffered a permanent loss. And again, remember the context of work. Persons would in fact be hoping that through their work, they're able to take care of themselves and their family, to be able to afford a home, to be able to, and all the other necessities in life. So they are permanently disadvantaged. And I'm saying don't underestimate this fact that if the government never allow for an opportunity for any real and meaningful negotiations to try to bring about resolutions that are acceptable. And let me
Continue, Mr.
also
Leroy
put
Baptiste.
on
Let me
the
just add the
table.
question because we're at the point in terms of your closing remarks. This is the
Sure.
negotiation period for 2014, 3-year period. So therefore, that 6-year period of consideration. What is the plan of the union as the way forward on behalf of its members? So if you can incorporate that in your closing, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Right. Well, as I said, we are before the special tribunal, Julia. We will be special tribunal. We have heard what the other unions have been faced with. We are before them. We will take on board when we haven't come to the point yet where the PSA has been placed in a position where we have to kind of take it or leave it a bit about whether we live and fight another bit, that whether we have a situation of 10-year settlement or that we have not reached to that point as yet. We have the best and brightest lawyers involved in our negotiations. When we come to that, we will examine the law to see if we agree that if the special tribunal put these particular positions to us, whether we agree in the first place that the special tribunal is in fact on the right side of law. So that has to be determined. And if they're on the right side of law, I will go before the General Council and we would advise of where we at. And if the General Council will then be able to authorize one way or the next, whether we fight on or whether we live to fight another day. Yes? So that we are at the point of we are before the special tribunal. I just want to be absolutely clear. Nothing that could happen will ever make 4% be a fair settlement. And you see, and that's important here. I view that no different than a person putting a gun by your head and you have to, you're purport to have agreed under duress. Yes?
All
But
right,
at
so we
no
got to
point in
leave it
time
there.
must it to be a fair settlement on behalf of workers.
Yes, thank you very much there, Leroy Baptiste, for joining us here on set, President of the PSA, and giving the clear position. This is where things are at the moment in terms of the tribunal. And even if the PSA gets to a point where it is required to take and move forward, understand clearly that the PSA is still saying that it continues to be very unacceptable and indeed unfair to the working class.
All right. All right. Well, viewers, I mean, Julia, that was an interesting, very interesting interview there. We've got lots more coming up on the Tobago Updates show this morning. In fact, we're going to be chatting when we come back from the break this morning with with Linford Beckles, the Director for the Department of Environment. And this morning, the focus is on World Environment Day 2023 and the selection criteria for raw products seminar. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, so we look forward to those upcoming discussions. Viewers, we want to thank you so much for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show. Those of you connecting with us online, and we see the views coming in because I'm certain the conversation this morning connects with a number of Public Service Association members who are all a part of this fight and this effort and would like to see the very best in terms of results coming forward. But viewers, we want to thank you so much for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show and to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.